Amaka onyangotu, amaka wanyangwatumo. Amaka minyamatu, amaka onyangotu, amaka wanyangwatumo. Amaka wanyangwatumo, wina tata kachimo waka wabanya. Kaya jenje sanya mama. Kaya jenje sanya mama. Kaya jenje sanya mama. Kaya danjino, kaya jenje sanya mama. Ni mama mi, eba jenje sanya mama. Kaya jenje sanya mama. Wachuchu wachuni kaya jenje sanya mama.
What a lovely Tuesday evening once again. And our cherished listeners out there, you are welcome to the program you know already, Hot Sport on Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM. I am yours truly, Kofi Awuku. We are back on the blog, and as usual, we're going to have that lovely discussion today. And what is the focus for today? Today we are going to look at the run-up to the election 2008. The run-up to the 2008 general elections. I'm yours truly, Kofi Awuku, in the seat. My resource persons here today is our very own Dr. EBENEZER AMANOR LARTEY, political scientist and the Vice President UAW. Dr. IHMAEL hLOVOR, lecturer, Department of Political Science Education, University of Education, Winneba. You can join the discussion today via the activated line 050-392-3158. 050-392-3158. You can WhatsApp on the same number, and of course you can SMS on the same number. You can give us your comments on the Facebook page, Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM, or you can also view it via the university web, www.uaw.edu.gh. The program is Hot Sport. I am yours truly, Kofi Awuku. My lovely guest, you are welcome to the studios.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure the week has been a bit hot.
Yes, it has been. Politically, it has been. The weekend through to today, it has been hot, interesting, and the showdown.
Showdown and show up.
Yes, has been shown down.
Well, Dr. hLOVOR, we are very happy to have you on the program today. I know it's been a very tough time, but you made time with us. We are so grateful.
Thank you.
And your week has been like?
It has been nice monitoring elections, MPP primaries, trying to make sense of what's the way, what lies ahead as we proceed to election 2024. Yeah, so.
Well, in fact, my producers went into the archives to bring us a few things pertaining to what the situation was like for election 2008. I just saw the slogan that were used. For President Mills, it was the president you can trust. And for President Nana Addo Dankwa-Akufo-Addo, who was contesting with President, Professor Mills, he said, believe in Ghana. Those were the two slogans that worked out for that elections. Now, we've been tracing the history. Of course, the main theme is, hey, the Fourth Republic, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We trace it from the time of Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. No. Did I say Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah? Wow. He was not in the Fourth Republic. Oh, please have that correction done. He was the First Republic. But we trace it from President J.J. Rawlings all the way through to President Akufo-Addo, President John Ejekum Kufuor. That was where we took a little pause. Of course, we ran people through a few of the things that we've done. And today we are ending that regime of President Kufuor and then seeing how President John Evans Atta Mills, may his soul rest in peace, got the seat. Let me get started by Dr. AMANOR LARTEY.
Well, thank you. Good evening to your discerning listeners and to my colleagues, ETAG members. We know we are on holidays, but we are not really on holidays because we are preparing earnestly towards the coming semester. Now the bride is in, we are buying books, we are ordering books, and we are now able to pay for our papers to be published in very good journals. And these days, even the good journals that used to be free some years ago, now you have to pay some processing fees.
They are likely to tell you that peer review, so you need to get them some money to pay the reviewers.
Sure. Oh, at times some of the reviewers even review for free as their contribution to academia. But processing and getting them published these days, publication is very expensive. Yeah. So
middle income economy.
Yeah, and Ghana is a middle income economy. So now there are some things we are not getting them for free any longer. So we are really using the money for these things. And
I just don't want us to deviate from our discussion. As I would have asked, are we really a middle income economy?
That would be an interesting discussion for us, because this morning on the sister station, I was listening as the host for the morning show was lamenting the state of Ghana's economy. And he said that Ghana, we have no economy. And as sad as that statement was, I cannot agree with him any less, because you look at how things have turned over the years, discussing politics in Ghana from around year 2000 to 2008, how things were when Kofi left, what Professor Mills came to inherit, what he also did, and look at the state of the economy now. Then we tend to ask ourselves questions. How did we get things wrong? What did we do wrong? And so
how did we get to this far? I just said I didn't want us to. But of course, they will come in bits and pieces. I'm sure Dr. hLOVOR will also want to have a little bite on that, and then we get back to you for you to take your dive.
Yes, of course. You see, in as much as the difficulties are quite enormous, and therefore we may be tempted to say that we have not done well. We must also recognize the structure of this economy, and that it is not an easy economy to manage with all the indicators. As to other, we are middle income economy. Statistically, yeah, we are. What is it is that there's that process of statistics translating into the lives of people. It is that management that has become a problem. And indeed, the classification of this economy itself as a middle income economy has been one of the problems that has led us into some of the difficulties we face. Because when you move from a low income economy and to a middle income, or rather lower middle income, there are certain facilities that the international community naturally will not give you. There are certain finances you access at a very low interest rate you may not access, as we are discussing. For instance, if a journal classified that low-income countries can publish free, immediately you transition from that process, then you run into trouble. So the part of the problems we are facing is the transitioning from a low-income economy to a middle-income economy. And the transition is quite abrupt. It's not well planned. That's why
it wasn't smooth.
It wasn't smooth. If you look at the Chinese, irrespective of the tremendous growth that they have recorded over the years, they are still classified as a developing country.
Wow.
Officially, they are a developing country. Although they are the second largest economy in the world, but statistically, officially, they still remain
a developing country. So how can a middle-income country borrow from a developing country? That's another wonderful discussion.
Of course, when I say developing country, it's not in terms of low-income country.
No. The statistics is what is making them what they are.
But you see, as we try to move up the ladder, it means that it's just like a child growing. When you are in school, you used to get some monies from your parent free. As you transition from national service into a big boy, you have to learn how to cater for yourself. As I said, one of the major problems have been the structure. Our structure is such that periods of growth are actually dependent development. What it means is that when there is growth somewhere, then it affects us that we grow. That is, if commodity prices are high and other countries are demanding. So, for instance, in the early 2010s or 28 thereabout, when the Chinese economy took off and there's the need for a lot of raw materials, you see a lot of African countries growing. And that's the time that people begin to have this discourse of Africa rising, African times, but all of a sudden it disappeared because the development then was not anchored on the strong, what you call fundamentals or structures. So as growth elsewhere stumbles, then our growth begin to also plunder. So we will be in this mess until the structure is repositioned from this highly dependent economy to an economy that can sustain itself.
In fact, it just draws me to the level where we say that when American coughs, we catch cold in our part of the world. I'm sure this is only an open now. At our appropriate time, we'll be coming to the economy. You can imagine what we're going to be doing. Well, we've been joined by Dennis Abebio. Dennis, you're welcome to the studios.
Thank you, boss.
Let's hope that you're not going to get a baptism today.
Not at all. My fathers are in the house, so they will guide me. I'm guided by their wisdom.
That's fine. That's fine. So, Dr. AMANOR, I'm back to you for the opener.
Yes. So I greeted my colleagues.
Yes.
Well,
our listeners are also listening to you.
Yes, and your discerning listeners. Well, election 2008. That was going to be a very important election in the history of Ghana, in the history of Fourth Republican politics and Ghana as a whole. You look at it in a sense that was going to be the first time that a party has ended a term, handed over to a different party that also ended its term. I mean the president.
Yes.
And there was going to be a totally new president
elected. Be it either from the governing party
exactly,
or another party.
Sure. And when you look at the track record of the MPP under President J.Ekufuor, he had introduced so much. And at times in class, let me digress a little. At times in class, I asked my students, I know I was having the TAIN and the TESCOM presidency in my class at a point.
That was a beautiful class then.
Yes. And for me, my politics in Ghana, 1 and 2 classes, I allow them to talk. Just I tell them that it should be an intellectual discourse, no parties, sloganeering and those things. And I asked the MPP whether the MPP is a social democratic party, is a welfare party and all.
Or a capitalist party.
Yes. And they themselves, it looks like they are a bit confused as to what the MPP really stands for. And the NDC same. I think that the NDC appears to be more of
socialist.
Well, they tell us that they are a social democratic party, but when the NDC is in power, what they do, they tend to implement policies that are
capitalist.
Yes, that are much capitalist than the NDC, than the MPP, because the MPP comes in and look at the policies that the MPP has been implementing over the years. They appear to be more social democratic, and that makes me believe that you cannot have a totally a party that is 100% capitalist. That okay for us everything is no, it's not. It is not possible, and that's what we need to make our followers understand. I thought our followers as if I'm a party leader. The followers of these political parties.
It's the followers of our program to understand.
Okay. Yes, to understand that no party stands 100% as a socialist party or as a capitalist party or as a whatever party nomenclature they want to give to themselves. So the MPP under J.Ekufuor, I think that really did very well. There was the expansion or the nationalization of health insurance, that it caught on well the whole Ghana. It became a nationwide policy, major policy achievement for J.Ekufuor. And not just that, in terms of education for the lecturer. Let me talk about UTAG. Definitely I'll talk about UTAG. It was during the time of J.Ekufuor that the lecturer, the dignity that the lecturer deserves really went up. Unfortunately, it is during the time of another MPP government that the lecturer feels so insulted by the way government has repeatedly treated UTAG members and in terms of not respecting agreements we've had with government, in terms of delaying payments that they have to make to us, even though we have signed on paper. And we have also, I think we have also been soft on Nanado. The goodwill, he has enjoyed the goodwill for 7 years.
Are you saying that you have been soft on Nanado's government?
Yes. There are 1 or 2 strikes. No. How many times have we been on strike under Nanado and Ekufuor? I think the goodwill, it has been overstretched.
Okay.
His 7th year. No, well, we are not here to talk about unionism, so let me stick to.
I agree.
So the
But this is all sports. Once you say it, you must justify it.
Oh sure. Well, that one I have countless examples to justify this.
That's fine.
So you look at J. Kufuor and his achievement, what he had done, the kind of respect that he brought to the Ghanaian, the way the economy was doing well. And it was around that time that I remember I had just completed university around my first degree, 2004. And after national service, I was working with GES, and banks were chasing us to come for loans. That was the kind of economy we had, where we completed school, and because I wanted to go back to school, I wasn't so keen on but my friends, the banks were there, jobs were opening up. That was the excitement around that time. So we expected that election 2008 was going to be a smooth ride for the MPP. Unfortunately, I believe that with time we'll discuss those ones. So the foundation for election 2008 for MPP had been laid. It was expected that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was going to have a smooth ride on the elephant to the presidential palace. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be. And I said, with time, we'll look at the dynamics of what contributed to these things. Some were issues of perception, some were miscalculations on the part of the
party in power?
Yes, of J. Kufuor going into the second round. So all these things, and we can also talk about the role that the image of Professor Mills played in the elections. All these things at the end of the day culminated in the result that we saw in 2008. So yes, election 2008, did MPP have any message? These are questions that I'm only asking. We'll get the details.
Well, we'll get to the details.
Yes, did they have any message telling us that you believe in Ghana? What does it mean to believe in Ghana? Is that someone telling us other things, but you tell us that you believe in Ghana? What do you believe in Ghana? What do you believe about Ghana? That isn't message enough. So these dynamics contributed to the result that we saw in 2008. It was a beautiful time in our politics because there was so much euphoria about it. We knew that things were going to change. And J. Kufuor, getting to the end of his term, upon reflection, made some statements that Ghana did not understand when he was talking about the term, that a 4-year term should be reconsidered, that we should give the president maybe one term and they can go for 7 years, or one term 6 years, so that you use the first 2 years or so to stabilize yourself. After stability, you have a lot of time to do what you have to do, and you know you are not going for re-election. So if you need to implement some policies that were near to the benefit of society, you do it, knowing that you are not going for re-election. Let's look at how Accra is so disorganized because we allow people to sell in the streets. Which serious society will allow these things? This rate and level of indiscipline in our capital. These are the things. It is because the governments have proven over the years that they do not have the political will to do what is right, and it grieves my heart.
You mentioned Accra as though it's not happening in Kumasi.
Oh, I am only looking at the national capital.
Okay.
The national capital. Even in Winneba, you go to Runabout, and at times
it's gradually building up.
They are rushing into cars with bread and with roasted plantain and abodo and those things. We are not saying that they shouldn't live, that they shouldn't sell, but there is a lorry station. The cars can park. People will buy from you. There is decency. But this rate of indiscipline, if we don't check, the society will never develop. No society on earth has ever developed on the back of indiscipline. It is not possible. But that is what we see. Because we did not have the political will. So President Kufuor makes that statement and Ghana misunderstood him. That the man doesn't want to hand over. But he needed to hand over. And he handed over. So maybe just a little about.
So if I want to understand, he said that statement that he made people feel that he wasn't prepared to respect the Constitution at the time.
Yes. People were asking, you had enjoyed 2 terms.
Making 8 years.
Why are you asking that we review it for someone to have 1 term? But I think that people should understand that.
But I guess he was making a very cogent argument.
Exactly. That the average leader comes in, and the first year, if he's a fresh president, like we will have in 2024, the leader who will come will now have to set up his government. And it doesn't take 1 day. It doesn't take 1 month. At times, it takes 1.5 years to 2 years to really get your team A. Now that you have your team A, you are thinking of the next elections in 2 years. So what you have to do in order to make sure there is real development, your policies, you implement them no matter how the people feel, once you know it is good for them. When you read about Lee Kuan Yew and about the Chinese experiment and everything, you will understand that Lee Kuan Yew was not a liberal democrat. That at points there was some level of authoritarianism. They are the ones that political scientists call the benevolent dictators. That his dictatorship is not suppressing you, it's not imprisoning you, no, but their dictatorship is to enforce, is to ensure that the right things are done, and you dare not step in their way. You'll be crushed, because it will be in the interest of society. Imagine they need your land for development. They are not coming to you to beg you. They are coming to you to resettle you, and they will resettle you properly. Nobody will steal the money like it's happening in Ghana. Nobody will steal the money. Nobody will give you half of the money that is due you. People along the Volta Lake, some villages have been settled. But why are they still there? This one, you just need a leader to say that we are not coming to your aid and we are moving you. You move them and they will be moved. But because someone will take you to court and all these things, I respect constitutions, I respect democracy, I believe in democracy. But I believe that the national interest must always be supreme. One thing with liberal democracies is that liberalism, it is not about the nation, it's about the individual. That is what liberalism has brought to us. Liberalism presents the individual right above every other right. So we ask ourselves, do we want liberal democracy for ourselves? Or we want some other forms of democracy? When we talk about social democracy doesn't lay emphasis on the individual. The emphasis is on the collective good. But these are the things that we don't want to hear, because we want to talk about the individual.
So sorry, I'm going to take us back. Was Rawlings right when they set up a committee that will fashion a democracy that works for us as Ghana?
What was the objective of Jerry Rawlings? Jerry Rawlings had made it known to us he did not believe in this democracy thing. So people were suspicious of his motives. That was he going to craft a democracy, a political system that will make him the eternal leader, that will make him perpetual leader. Those were the fears.
So it's like we missed the opportunity due to prejudice.
I think we missed a golden opportunity. I always tell my class that we missed an opportunity under the 11 years of Jerry Rawlings. The 11 years of Jerry Rawlings wasn't a democracy. He could have changed the fortunes of this country. With the high-handedness, with the brutality, things could have been streamlined. Unfortunately, I am not glorifying coups and I'm not glorifying authoritarian rules. But what I'm saying is that there was a time in our history where the wishes of the ruler became law. We had him not for 4 years, but for 11 years.
Not only did it become a law, but we became disciplined persons.
Exactly. But those 11 years, what happened? We missed an opportunity. Societies like China, in the 1970s, China wasn't the China we are seeing today.
That's why we had to take somebody.
At independence, Ghana was better off than South Korea. Ghana was far better than Malaysia. Ghana was better than most of the Asian tigers. In sub-Saharan Africa, no country could match up to Ghana in terms of human resource, because we had the most graduates in sub-Saharan Africa, being Ghanaians. What has happened to us? What has happened to us? And those are the things that when students are developing, when we begin reading about how we started and how we have messed ourselves up,
Because for sobbing.
We need to wail, because and I think that much of the blame should be at the doorstep of the middle class. Those of us who have been to school, who are the intellectuals who sit behind the consoles and all. And now I blame you a lot, because the agenda you are setting is always NPP, NDC. And don't you realize that your listeners, we are tired of this noise from NPP and from MDC?
No, but for Radio Windy Bay, we don't do the NDC NPP agenda setting.
Oh, when I talk about you behind the console, I'm talking about you all.
Thank you.
But Windy Bay, we know you stand out. So the middle class, I think that the middle class, we have failed Ghana. And until the middle class, we rise up. When you read Developing Experts, what some theory that they propose is that societies will develop when you have a large middle class. And when you have a large middle class, it will get to a time that they will begin demanding a share of power, and that will transform authoritarian rules. Unfortunately, in Ghana, when we have the middle class and they want a share of power, they only come in to create, to loot, and to share, which is unfortunate. When our students, IT political science students, and we talk, some they only pray. Those who are in DC, their only prayer now is that, say, we only pray that Nanadu will keep doing what he's doing, so that NDC will come. Then, look at the argument. By 2024, 2025, when NDC comes, I would have completed my national service.
Then
I'll get a job. Those are their calculations. And it grieves my heart. Someone I have taught for 4 years. He's not thinking about Ghana, but he's thinking about himself and his job. So the middle class, we have failed this country. And it's unfortunate. But that is the stark reality. We need to wake up.
We need to wake up is the opening statement on how governance had been in Ghana under President Kufuor. The fact that we missed that golden opportunity, and the fact that his exiting statements played a role in election 2008. Dr. hLOVOR.
Thank you. Let me first of all start from few of the issues that my senior raised.
You see, he shook his head. He doesn't want you to call him your senior.
One of the things about our party system in terms of ideology is that because the two parties seems to now adopt a rather pragmatic approach, so the ideological divide, i.e. liberal democracy as against social democracy, is bled. Bled in the sense that the parties are election cautious, that you need to implement policies
that
will make you win power. So most of the policies that these parties function are policies that are election focused. Now, they are not development focused.
So the ultimate outcome of their policy is for me to win election, not for the nation to develop.
No. So what you see is that no matter how well-intentioned a policy is, you will find out that even at the stage of implementation, there will be tinkering for political reasons. And one of the reasons why the ideology have been bled is also the fact that the two parties have to engage an international community that since the fall of the Berlin Wall has virtually become a neoliberal kind of international order. And therefore we see the two parties trying to fall in line. So Claude Ike, a very learned Nigerian scholar, once said that it is wrong for Africa or for any development scholar to be discussing development in Africa. Why? Because development was never part of the agenda of African leaders. The agenda is to acquire power and maintain power. So the ultimate goal is to acquire political power, but what that power will translate to is never clear from the beginning. I hope you are getting
I'm getting the picture.
The analysis. So in terms of ideology, we will not see a clear-cut ideology with a made-out ideology, but when it comes to reality of policy implementation, sometimes practical reasons, of course, we don't face ideological problems, we face real problems. So this ideological divide may not be so clear as in the past, where from independence, where we know those who belong to the socialist camp, when they come, you see a clear divide. But as the Fourth Republic progresses, you realize that then that ideological divide is blurred, because then the two parties must virtually implement policies, one for election, and two, because the international community virtually determines what policy options we put on the table. So that is very important. You see, as I said earlier, in terms of election 2008, it was one of the interesting elections. Now, if you look at that election, getting 2007, we have the global financial crisis. Now, that virtually hit our economy in the sense that, well, President Kofi has done so well. Getting to the time around 2007, when the crisis hit, you have the ripple effect on the rest of society. So the economy, if you look at the figures, inflation started to go up. All the other indicators were showing negative signs getting to 2008. So, and normally, if you look at economic chaos in Ghana, it corresponds to the last term of a president that will not contest for power again. If you check the indicators, one of the reasons why that happens is that, one, investors will play the waiting game. They are not so sure. They are not so sure of the outcome of an African election.
Well, that draws our time to that video that was made on an African election.
Yes, after the 2008 election. Now, and if you look at 2007, getting to 2008 election, about 3 countries in Africa had elections. Kenya was in chaos. Zimbabwe, Nigeria, they were all not peaceful. Now, so what happens is that then investors started holding back on their investment, because it is a risky for any investor in an election year where the president is ending his tenure to pump money into that African economy. So the price we pay for instability across Africa sometimes is this kind of things, because then they have to wait. Now, why do they even wait? Because what even the president may come from the same party, you are not so sure of the direction of that president. So all these have an effect in 2000. They reproduce the same effect in 2008. Indeed, that was the second time that the president is coming to end his tenure, and therefore power will have to transition. So all this affected the economy. And if you look at the Fourth Republic, the most important determinant of electoral outcome happens to be the economy. The state of the economy at any given point where the election will be held determines the winner, regardless of how popular your party has performed before. So in 2008, we all recognize that during the 8-year rule of President Kofi, he did so well. He brought in place, he brought social interventions. He brought policies that virtually made sure that the economy was booming. But when the global financial crisis hit, the economy started to struggle. Then we have close to an election, investors who play the waiting game. And all the effect of all this is that the economy started to have nosedive, and therefore the electorate.
Was that at the time that we did the redenomination?
2005.
So what you see is that while you may think that the electorates that voted against MPP because of course there are other factors, so i.e. the way the internal party primaries went, where you have about 17 aspirants trying to succeed for the primaries, and you can imagine that all these aspirants were throwing their own missiles here and there. So you virtually have to settle for the then candidate Nana Akufo-Addo when they had the Legon Congress, where although he has not crossed the 50% mark, Alan has to step aside, concede, so that he then lead the party. Now, what happens anytime a party, the leader of the party, doesn't have overwhelming endorsement of the party, then he leads an army that is not well coordinated, half-hearted, and that will always have an effect on the outcome of the election.
General elections.
So you see that he scored less than 40%. It was virtually a split kind of vote between the two of them. So that carryover virtually affected the campaign and subsequently the outcome of the election. So we see that just as in 2008, I said Ghana's economy.
Was it just as in 2000 and that is in 2000?
Yeah, in 2000, yes. 2008.
Okay.
The economy is very vital. But we may talk about ethnicity, we may talk about other, but you see
indicators.
If a party is perceived to be pro Ashanti, pro Akan, pro Ewe, pro Gan, if the government is going to bed without kinky, and he perceived that the party being in power is the reason why
I'm not getting the
kinky, then ethnic affiliation doesn't matter.
Okay.
Now, I always don't want to discuss Ghana's election within the context of ethnicity because I consider them as social cleavages. There's no country in this world with a party-based political system where you don't have certain areas voting in a particular way. There will always be regions that vote block. Just as in the United States, there are regions, no matter what you do, they will vote Republican.
Texas will always be Texas.
So instead of attaching the name ethnicity, these are social cleavages. You are born within a certain social group, and the values and the orientation of that group determine how you perceive politics, how the group you want to associate with. So if you take Ashanti region as a group, now a child growing in that environment will have so much contact with symbols, language depicting NDC depicting MPP, that he
as
or
the
she
preferred
will grow up buying into that social collective. A child growing in Volta will have the same introduction to NDC, that he will be more likely to align with the NDC. So, and these are very, you see, in as much as many of us want to downplay the relevance of block voting regions, they are actually the building block of the party structure. Now, if these block voting regions don't exist, the two major parties will be so weak to actually stand the chance of winning elections because they provide the block upon which the parties are based. The reason why we don't have a third force, actually, is that none of the other parties is able to create and maintain a particular population as its stronghold. Because if you create that, for instance, there's no way the NDC will lose such that it will have less than 1/3 of the seats in parliament. They will always be above. There's no way NPP will lose such that they will have less than 1/3 of the seats in parliament, because there are certain seats that give them the ability.
They are assured.
They are sure that they will win those seats. So we will have these regions. What happens in those regions normally, if your party is going to win elections, is that one, the turnout in those strongholds must be
extremely high,
and two, the percentage the party will win in those regions must also be high. Two things: the turnout should be high, and
then the percentage of the party that moves to them should also be high.
So in those regions, they can let you down if the economy
It's bad.
is bad. What they will do is
Do I say bad or perceived bad?
perceived to be bad. Of course, if it is bad, we all feel it in our pocket. It's not like perceived. The truth is that perception and reality are actually very close.
It's only a thin line.
There's only a thin line. So, of course, we all have our definition of a good economy.
Yeah.
So, if my salary is good enough and I can afford whatever I want to afford, well, the economy is good. If it is not so, I mean, then the economy is bad. So, as
Someone
you
said that good or bad is relative, depending upon who is saying it.
yes, of course. And if majority of the people says that the trend is bad, then it is bad. But having said that, what I'm saying is that if you look at 2008, turnout in some of the block voting regions of the NPP dropped. All right. When it dropped, then you have a little bit increment in the votes of the opposition.
Okay.
Now, so what happens in those block voting regions is that, well, people will decide that, well, this is my party, I won't vote for the party, so let me stay home. Few of them will say, okay, let me do a protest vote.
Okay, so vote against?
Yeah, so I'm going to vote against a particular party. It's not like I'm voting for the opposition, but I just want to vote against this party to send a message that
they have not made me fair.
They have not been fair to me. And so 2008 was a similar thing where the NPP lost. So the turnout dropped in some of their strongholds, and the swing regions decided that, okay, maybe after 8 years, it's enough. Let us.
That is what the Central and the Greater Accra region did.
Yes, and you see, one of the things about Ghanaians is that it's like part of our culture. No, if you are in a position for some time, it's like you have eaten some. Let somebody else go. So let somebody else come and it's like the perception is that you are enjoying something, and therefore
is it a perception or is it a reality?
But is it also the case that maybe the leadership then, if they continue, they will do well? So sometimes it's just a perception. So, but of course, our political class, by the way they live, by the affluence that they demonstrate, they communicate that message to the electorate that yes, power is sweet. Therefore, when the voters see the politician in this kind of affluence and they consider their lot, then they believe that there's something more you could do for us
that you did not do.
Therefore, another person
should come. Maybe I'll get it.
And of course, when you look at when you stay in power for long, you naturally make enemies, even within your own party. It's that's a natural tendency, because there are people who envisage that by putting you in power, their breath will be bettered. But you cannot be able to
butter all the
breath. That's what it is. So, for instance, although we are not discussing the recent, if you look at it, those who have virtually voted for Kennedy Japan are like protesters.
Okay.
They feel like the system have not
been fair to them.
Been fair to them. So, let us vote for somebody who appears to be outside the system, who appears to understand our language, who came through for us when things were tough. Okay, so these are the natural dynamics that play when you are going to this, particularly if a president is coming to end his tenure. And within the party, there will be various people who feel like they have contributed enough and it is their time. How you manage
those dynamics
determines success. And in 2008, the NPP, as a party, failed to manage it appropriately.
And that cost them.
Because if you have about 17 people one, Ghana is a highly conservative society. So
I'm sure people will contest it.
People, we are highly conservative. We are highly kind of. We don't want you to be too affluent in the way you look.
Okay.
So then it begs the question: what exactly is at the presidency that all these people,
17 people want to go there?
Wants to go there. What are they going to do? So you give your opposition parties a very little job. All they need to look at these 17 people. They have eaten. They want to continue eating. So sometimes it's all about politicking. So it may be true, it may be false, but when they're able to propagate the message,
and drum it home well.
You don't in politics. You don't need to put fact there. All you need to put there is what people will believe. So if I can paint you as a dictator, if I can paint you as somebody who's not worthy, if they will buy that message,
I will win.
I will win.
But don't you think that the Ghanaian voter is becoming more sophisticated now, that those things no longer work?
Of course. But then we still have a very large population that will still consume some of these propaganda tools. So you will still have to do the propaganda. And it's also about how you deploy your campaign.
Well, I think you're going to be a very good, wonderful consultant to other political parties to talk to. So let's wrap that one up, then I can get to Dennis. We can now move into the election proper.
All right. So if you look, it's also about the strategy. Professor Adamos was going house to house. At that time, house to house was like, this guy is
a new phenomenon.
It's like, the guy doesn't have money. That was at the sister station Saturday, with Sami Crowd. Is that when they were traveling those days, when they get to certain places and they see the signboard, small signboard of Adamos, they laugh and say, this guy, he doesn't have money. And he was doing house to house. So in their mind, they were so confident that house to house campaign
will not work.
He won't go anywhere. But that is innovation. Parties must be innovative. The party that is most innovative to reach the largest number of people and connect with them is the one that wins. And that is one of the cases of the NDC and MPP in 2008. Because when he deployed the house to house, it's something that doesn't fit into how they were operating at the time. So it was, but he and his team, through the house to house, managed to go to the people directly instead of messages on the board. If you look at 2016, the NDC reverted the role.
They did do the house to house again.
So they were Dubai and this one and this one. And Nana Addo and the MPP decided to do
pound the fufu, play the drought,
go and house to house. And you see, it seems when parties are in power, the resource they command
determines how they function their campaign, not the strategy that work.
So in 2008, instead of functioning a strategy that will reach the largest people, the party virtually functioned a strategy based on resource. And you see, and as you function a strategy based on resource, the tendency of you losing is huge. It's very high. Because by deploying the resource, you have actually confirmed the perception that politicians are corrupt. So you then invite more attacks upon yourself. So the 2008 was actually an interesting year.
Yeah.
We had a global
Dr. hLOVOR, let's keep it. I don't want people to get free consultancy. So maybe the politician would have to come to you for more consultancy. So at least I can get my 10%. Dennis, let's hear you now. Then we can move in for the first summary, and then of course we'll have the second session.
Yeah, thank you, Senior.
Hey, don't say senior.
I'm very privileged sitting amidst my astute lecturers, and I believe that I will still be guided by their wisdom and the knowledge that they have given to me over a period of time. They have said a lot, and I think I cannot say more than what they have said, but I want to also draw listeners' attention to the fact that in as much as we have ideological issue between MPP and NDC, of which is, to me, it looks like the two are even confused. They don't know what they believe in. The one who claims to be capitalist seems to be, implementing socialist policies, and the one vice versa. The issue here is that I see it in this way, that our democracy is a little bit questionable, and in the sense that if you believe in ideology, it should be state or national ideology and not political party kind of ideology. Because if you pick America, UK, France, China, Russia, you get a specific ideology that you link to these specific states. You know for sure that America is capitalist state. France is capitalist state. What about Ghana?
Mix.
Mix driven by who? Political parties, and not national kind of thing. So I see it to be...
But is it not because the nation do not have a national policy that would determine, that would actually push the various political parties to fashion their policies to match the national policy?
And that is where the problem lies. Because if, as a state, for almost close to 70 years, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah came with a 7-year development plan, and when you look into that plan, you can see that everything was working to perfection until his overthrow. And we could infer from that kind of plan and then make it bigger to meet the emerging economic issues. We didn't take it because of this kind of politics that has eaten into our fiber. If you pick it, it will be like you will link it to Nkrumah. So you want to pick an ideology that we can also, it can be linked to us, that we brought it, we executed it. And that is the reason why we are still stagnated economically and politically. When Nanado won his election 2017, his inaugural speech, he said that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said that the black man is capable of managing his resources.
His own affairs.
Yeah. The political liberation that we gained from the colonial masters, which was expected to accompany with this kind of economic liberation, and with it accompany dividends, almost 60 to something years. The dividends that we are supposed to get from the political liberation in an economic sense, we've not been able to achieve it. What is the problem? That was the question in the speech. And they know how to ask the question, but how to respond to the question becomes the problem.
Are you trying to say that they are good at setting the question, but unable to give us a marking scheme for it?
Because they don't respect lecturers, they don't respect people within the academy. If they respect most of these scholars, Dr. hLOVOR sitting here, as you just indicated a few minutes ago, that it is like he's giving a free kind of thing to them. Dr. AMANOR is here. Almost all the challenges that we are facing within our time right now, scholars within Ghana, Dr. AMANOR said it, the middle class, they have research into it, they have solutions to them, but they will not take it. Because they don't come with the state at heart. They come with their own agenda, create, loot and share. They come with their own political party ideology, which will favor them and not what will favor Ghana. So if you look at the 2008 event leading to the 2008 election, you could see that, first of all, the reason why MPP could not win was, I can link it to the global economic recession that affected the whole, world. Ghana got its part from that global recession, where even in US, most of the big banks were collapsing. But then you could see, as Dr. hLOVOR said, the Alan Cash factor. The man name is Alan Kojo. Where comes the cash? It was there that when I was, by then I was done with my secondary school, and we just had cash. What do you mean by cash?
Well, he said job for the boys, cash for the boys. That was the slogan.
That was the slogan. But the interpretation that people read and the money that, the allegation that he was sharing money became the order of the day. And it was then that we began to see these giant billboards. So if you don't have the cash, how would you be able to come with this giant? And it was very nuisant in the ears of Ghanaians. You could see that kind of flamboyance kind of politics in MPP. Quite apart from that, the internal division, the long served, the Kufuor boy, and other things also divided the attention of, MPP. And because they were also still in power, they were confused as to whether they are to help recalibrate the economy amidst the economic recession that they were facing, or to find ways and means to break what the eight. Even by then, breaking the eight was not, the agenda or the slogan that was driving their own campaign. So you could see that multiple factors ended up, MPP losing their election. But to bring our attention to one of the things, you could see during Kufuor's time, Kufuor was able to appoint someone from NDC, Dr. Eben Chambers, to go and work with the ECOWAS Parliament. He was able to appoint Dr. Pakosi Indium, a GENEERAL, to come. It was during that era that Dr. Pakosi Indium picked one of the prominent politicians that since then I've not heard his name, Dr. Abu Sakara. So you begin to see that MPP and NDC succeeded to kill the emerging formidable political party that would challenge the duopoly within the public politics. And that was the era that MPP began to know that, oh, it is your time. When you come, you get it. When it is my time, that I also come in and then take my share. And this has become a kind of, they have been able to cement this agenda. And
making Ghana a two-party state?
Two-party state, which is not clearly stated in our constitution. They have succeeded in the political party. Because by then you could see that CPP was coming out. Because Pakosi Indium was the presidential candidate. He picked Dr. Abu Sakara as the running mate. And after that, it was 2012 that they were able to just create. And that one was, it was deliberate. They were able to just do it to, collapse this third formidable force coming. So my lectures are here, and I believe that they have a lot to say. But then to bring my submission to a conclusion, 2008 election was a period that Huntington turned over to check whether our democracy is really consolidated, is at the point of being consolidated, or still at that kind of infancy stage. So Kufuor was also trying to manage things well, and that is why, to me, he didn't come into the limelight to help, his side to win the election. Because if he would have attempted to do that, that one would have also...
Now, what sort of help are you talking about here? He was on the campaign trail.
Forget not just last 3 days. What did Nanado say on the platform that people are reading different meaning from it?
We'll get to that one later.
Yeah.
Listeners, this Radio Windy Bay, the program is Hotspot. The topic on the ground is round up to election 2008 in Ghana. We would go for a little break, and of course, that is what we're going to have. My brother, Anamwa, people call him Sister Anamwa, but he is Kwame Anamwa. He will be giving us the summary in the local language, so our local folks would also get to follow what we are discussing. Anamwa.
Say.
Hey, I can say I'm watching me.
Yo.
More.
Be the baby bright mama yechi ahu.
Sir?
Ejana abinufa wesinkungwa na wonya na wada won kakra Dr. AMANOR LARTEY yina cheba Dr. Maliha wada won kakra nti bright say doctor yin doctor wonum so anu ye hwenum so ni bi na woba yas na ba
How the major wa be kan semete mo onko ai
yo menda wa say in there wo hotspot don abegwafo wo hwe nzama osisi answer na afi 2008 about rebaba in there afi 2008 no man pene da John Jakum Kufuor or the ne mfe awotwe ana pene bi obezo man pene be wi nti na wo de wotu bancha wɔhyɛ mi na ɔwɔ dɛ wɔhyɛ ɔyɛ amambu no mu ɔmampanyin foforɔ ba nti dɛm afin dɛ mmarama yɛku ahoro nyinaa wɔbɔ hɔn aporɔbɔ na adze ma wɔman mu ndc na odunodo ma wɔba ɔyɛ abanam wɔ afe 2008 Professor John Evans Atamils a wɔnyin baabi kɔr ɔno na ɔnyin na bedechi John Dramani Mahama na wɔba ɔyɛ abanam wɔ afe 2008 na Dr. Ishmael hLOVOR hLOVOR Mr. Dr. Ishmael hLOVOR our Department of Political Science Education. Na ochemde afi 2007 eho ne wiade nyina amani na hon sikasam oye basa na amani sika oye basa no so ka ho ema afi 2008 wokoto aban eyi NDC wotumi na wodi nkuhim ochemde se ehwe eyi amembu a otoda na yewomi a abana horo abayina obiri ho ohida wo assembly potia ogina do ndama oyen se worka praba na worka de mesenyi na woda akọ no manfo ahwe ho ato aba mo anade amanaman anade eku ahoro a bre na bre wo mani ma wo chen de momfa ha na wonam momfa ha na wonam onu nkosin nemum abanhoro a waba ewo eyidem amembo otodo anan oye Fourth Republic ibiri ho ohida wo nhihye papa bi oye policies a wodi ye adwuma za wodi kapre abato na ma ekuhuru a woboa omani bre na bre wochen onu nkotin na woye na ochemde afi 2008 aman ibaasa na wowo bibrim ha na workoto aba Nigeria Zimbabwe nye Ghana na obandama na nkrofo wosika odibegbu ndwuma woti meshada antin de amanya workoto aba wo mi se den no beso yemfa sika yemfa nkonkehye nti obade abato afiso amanaman ana ndwuma ku a wodi won sika begbu ndwuma wo amana hrumin oye dema hon de wodi won sika wodi baba abahyehye oye dam amanamu ma hon so anya bi mo mano so enya ho mfasopi na ochem de se hwe eyi NDC na MPP a afibiara se wokoto aba na se obedin kunyima bia a wodom no do won woto aba no ho ne pi ono bo ho mo wodi nkunyim ewo abato no mu na nso se ehwe 2007 bra na workwa aka prefranka twinzi bi wo MPP amanyeku no mu a dosisi amanyeku entum na wahya ho hwe papa biara nkrofo nkunkuru do eson na wo nyina ru gina de obiara per oye franka twinzi bi wo MPP amanyeku no mu nti ni na akaka ho na omama afe 2008 abaton ankoye amfama oye MPP amanyeku na my 2016 so na for wakakra na ochem de se 2016 na NDC na wo abem na wo abem na wo akade wo akade nti akade na oche wada monfa ha nti de rube ono akade ho na wo hwe na wo bode na MPP so de na wo hwe omanfo wona sitinem nti omanpen na adobon no nam choba na obufufu na ade obi na abiankwan wo akunum na ade binim bor na Dr. Bami wo akagya ho na oreka ni nyina onyomanfo no kalipo ni nyinara oye de omanfo no obunyi wo de identify wo hu ho de nkrofo na wonye wonam na NDC de na onam de wo abem na akade wo ho nti na ono ho na wo hwe na woto aba na ochim na se hwe 2008 abato na Professor Mills ne de rubon also door to door dem na woyen nti tokru biara na wo room ono omanfo hwe ho na woto aba na wonye tumin 2016 na woda won ho sisi ade wo tum wo ndamanti wonye ma wopie biara onam de ska ho sika na ochire mo wonye ma de minti woyen ye de fodi kan besia na yasia bembio
jana mwanno asifu so na orwo
na wo fonu nkwam wo kambore na ade nyina miji the video na pictures no wo
I'll prepare how
Madasi.
So listen, that was the first translation for the first part. We'll be coming back for, in fact, it's actually a summary of what we have discussed. We'll be coming back for the second session before we take a close. Now, the dive is going to be straight into memories of the campaign and the elections. And of course, production has been able to chance on the swearing in speeches of late President Atta Mills. And if you wouldn't mind, let's refresh our memories with some of these things. And then, of course, we will take a dive into, we will relive some of the experiences.
Saw John Atta Mills win the presidency by less than 0.5%. The opposition leader succeeded John Kafor, who served 2 4-year terms.
The leads that help all of us achieve a better Ghana.
Ghana is the world's second largest cocoa grower and Africa's second biggest gold miner. Oil production will also be a reality in 2010. Much of its success is down to Kofi, but he's also had many problems. There have been reports of overspending and allegations of corruption, including the implication of senior officials in drug trafficking.
So that is just a short report, but let's listen to that one also. Then we'll go into a discussion.
When you are pronouncing such figures in billions, and I want to remind you that I didn't even know how to translate them into OPPPP.
There is this
98.3 FM.
We are working towards the removal of the Chief Justice. How true is that rumor, and do you have any such intention to work for the removal of the Chief Justice? Thank you.
Please stay where you are. Look at my face very carefully. Listen to my voice. Do I look and sound like a cat hunter?
98.3 FM.
Reliving some of the moments of Professor John Ibasa Mills, may his soul rest in peace. Dr. hLOVOR, I guess that's it with you.
Okay. See, it's one of the campaigns that a lot of things happen during the campaign. One is about two personalities.
Yeah.
The calm, down to earth Mills against current President Akufo-Addo, who
the Dadaba.
At that point was projected, as it were, as the Dadaba.
The man with the golden spoon in the mouth.
Yes, he was born with golden spoon against somebody who has lived with the downtrodden. So, and of course, and the way that campaign proceeded is as if the strategies adopted by the two parties virtually are far apart, and they seems to give credence to the personality around the two candidates. So if you watch that campaign, how the MPP went about with songs, with all manner of elaborate ceremonies, virtually trying to win power through billboards and all manner of extravagant campaign strategy. Then you look at how the NDC actually undertake their campaign by deploying a strategy that virtually look like, well, this is a guy who is one of us who understand the language of suffering that we are going through, and therefore he is not, it connects to the people. So I believe that one of the reasons why the MPP actually didn't do well, I mean, they didn't retain power or break the eight then, was campaign strategy. The strategy adopted by the Mills campaign team was spot on, in the sense that, you see, when somebody sits with you and talk with you, it gives you that impression of who the person is. Oh, this person is humble, and that work with the Ghanaian, because they want a humble leader, a leader of humility. So Mills camp projected him as that president you can trust, particularly coming on the back of a situation where the MPP government at the time is suffering from the perceptions of corruption, perceptions of enriching themselves at the expense of the ordinary Ghanaian. So having somebody, that's when you look at the message, the president you can trust. What are we trusting him with? Is that you are trusting him with the public purse, that he will protect the purse, he will be a president who will not spend your money. So that campaign, I think that is one of the campaigns that the NDC actually was very effective in terms of how they deploy their personnel, the little resource they have, how they deploy it. And that is the campaign that, I think that was the last campaign that they actually deployed Rawlings Axe Factor.
Okay.
Where Rawlings virtually touring the whole country, trying to get in the vote for most. I remember when...
So there was like two different parties.
Yeah, so it's like Rawlings waging his own war somewhere, and Mills also waging his own somewhere. So what you remember when we have to go to Tin to determine who wins?
He went ahead.
He was already there on the ground.
No. So we have to work the trajectory. I mean, they went to the first one.
Yes, they went through the first one. The first one was we couldn't get a clear-cut winner. Then there was a second round, and still the vote left in Tin is so significant that the EC could not have declared Mills winner, because if that vote had gone other way, then something would have happened. So we have to go there.
Was that the election that how do we call it? The strong room was really heated?
Yes, it was heated, and at a point the NDC said, let's bring the people from street. And indeed, you see, while we pride ourselves that we are peace-loving people, in 2008, actually, we demonstrated that the so-called peace-loving was a facade, in the sense that if not for the role of President Kufuor, perhaps we would have also gone the way of our other African brothers. See, in the heat of the whole tension, confusion, where we are all not certain who is winning, who is not winning, President Kufuor made a very profound statement that actually calmed everybody down. That, listen, I'm ready to hand over power to whoever wins this election. And that is very key. Because, and I think that sometimes the MPP followers blame him for not pushing hard for Akufo-Addo at that time, but that would have actually be a dangerous path to take, because when the issue get heated and the NDC guys were ready to go and call people on the street to come to the EC room. Now let's assume that you have a president who said, who said, okay,
I'm not prepared to hand over
to anybody except my party. That would have pushed the whole country out of the peace zone that we have always been. So the role of President Kufuor, particularly, not in terms of who wins the election, but in
holding the nation together.
The nation together at that critical moment. Because if you look at this movie, the African election,
perfectly.
If you look at some of the things that went on behind the scenes, people were prepared for all manner of things. All right. So it takes leadership to hold it together, and that we must give it to President Kufuor. At a critical moment where any president so power conscious will have gone the other way, he still the middle ground and said, listen, if the MPP will lose and Ghana will still remain Ghana, that is fair. So you see, I always said that all the leaders we have had in the Fourth Republic, you may disagree with them, you may think they've not done well, but one thing they have all done is to keep
the democracy.
The democracy,
the
Fourth Republic intact, to keep us as one people. Now, listen, we have not had civil war. We have not had the large-scale war that our neighbors have had. But look at where we are. So imagine that we have had maybe a period of disruption. That means that our development will have been
retarded again.
If you look at countries like Sierra Leone, you look at countries like Liberia, at a point they were doing better than us until they had the civil war. So if you go to those countries and you see the state that they are in, then you appreciate that regardless of how bad we think our leaders have performed during this republic, they have actually done their bit. Indeed, some of the failures of our leader is about the structure of the republic. Why you have a republic where winning power will cost you so much? It's expensive to run and win elections in Ghana. And some of these expenses, you have to raise the money. And then virtually, when you win power,
you must pay back.
You must pay back. So, you see, the way we have structured it make it so difficult that some of the leaders may have very good intentions.
Without the cash.
But without the cash, you are not winning the power. And without the power, you see, you can have all the brilliant ideas you can have. I can sit here in this studio, discuss all the ideas. So when we do this,
98.3 FM.
Now listen, if you don't get money to organize an effective campaign
and win the power,
your idea is as good as the paper on which you are writing it on. It won't move anywhere. And therefore, what has happened is that the state appears to be captured by vested interests. So we have
power
those we
breakers,
call political entrepreneurs. They invest in politics, and then they harvest whatever they invest in. So, and unfortunately for us, those people are not developmentally inclined. Indeed, capturing of the state has always happened in any democracy. If you go to the US, we talk about the military-industrial complex. Top military leaders, industrial complex determine what goes on. But they are quite developmental inclined. They are oriented towards the long goal interest. And the problem with Ghana is that we have not been able to define what our goal is. Because when you define your goal, what you want to achieve, then every structure within the state must be targeted towards it. So, for instance, what Ghana do we want? That Ghana must be clear to everybody, and that Ghana must be built by first producing people, patriots, who have the values that are needed to build it up, to build a political party based on those values. Our political parties are not based on any value. So, for instance, if you take our educational system, did they ask the question, what values actually do we want to inculcate into the young ones we are producing? But if you go to the Chinese, they will tell you three things: work hard, love your family, die for your nation. It's as simple as that.
Work hard, love your family, die for your nation.
Now, so
in Ghana, what is it?
So that's the question. So every structure.
God bless our homeland, Ghana, and make our nation great and strong.
You see, there's the national anthem, the pledge. How do we teach it? We recite it.
That's it.
I promise on my honor.
To be faithful and loyal to Ghana, my
when we are
motherland.
growing up, so we all learn.
Blah, blah, blah,
but
blah,
you
blah.
will not connect with the word that are in it.
That's it.
So we have to let the child understand the word. Appreciate the word. So
value honesty.
When he's saying it, when he's singing it, it's just not a song. It's just not a pledge. It is something that he must live by. But currently, I mean, it's the poetry. God bless my homeland, Ghana. So we all do that, and then we graduate, and then we are kind of thing.
So are they all even able to recite or sing it appropriately?
Yeah, of course. That's also another question. But the most important is understanding the words and the meaning of those values, because the values we want to live by are those in that song and that pledge. So instead of teaching them the pledge, you have to let them understand the meaning of those words. They have to live by it.
I guess we should have a course in the university that will make people appreciate the values of these things and how they need to.
Of course.
It looks like you and my lecturer, you've had access to my laptop, and
anyway, so
that is serious.
So you see, as I said, we have a dysfunctional political party structures. Because they are dysfunctional, when they capture power, they cannot produce the goals of development, and therefore, elections tense as they are, because in 2008 the election was very tense. Indeed, when we went to 10, we were all on tenterhooks. We were not so sure what was going to come out of it, because
and the big man took the lead.
Yes, of course. So you watch the election, the tension is because in this country, winning elections has become the surest way to escape poverty.
Make that statement again.
In this country, winning elections is the surest way to escape poverty and grow your business.
Wow.
Because access to political power guarantee even success in business. Wow. In any country that is serious about development, entrepreneurs should be richer than politicians.
But in Ghana,
the opposite seems to be the case here. Politics is a service. So sometimes I see young people, I say, what do you want to be? I want to be a politician. So you say, so sometimes you want to say, okay, yes, it's true, you want to be a politician. But what profession do you want to be? But you know what? They are following a template.
They have seen people get in there,
move from school, get into politics.
And overnight they are good to go.
Their fortunes have been transformed. So if you try,
I want to be like that person.
Yes, and of course they will. You see, sometimes when you are teaching or you are teaching politics, you are trying to communicate what the real thing is. Sometimes they look at your car and they look at the guy who went into politics car. They say, this guy, he seems not to know what he's teaching. So if politics has become so attractive, 2008, one of the most tense environment. In fact, it could have gone anywhere.
Maybe you and I would have been sitting
Yes,
here.
Of course, it could have gone anywhere. It is because everything else hinges on politics. From being a toilet keeper, there's at the time when government is power, the toilet keeper, the person who keeps
his job,
has to lose his job. So when you have a politics structured in winner takes all, then the goals of development, which should be the heartbeat of politics, become difficult. Because I want to win power. And that's when we see election years. Government expenditure goes up.
98.3
Because the politicians mind that
FM.
Spend the money, win the power, then you solve the problem. That's what the problem is, an afterthought. They know that they are creating the problem. And we the people, we also know that they are creating a problem. But then the same people who also go to the politicians to demand
take the money.
So it's a whole system,
a cycle,
including us, and of course the leaders. We didn't import them. President Rawlings, he grew up here. We didn't import. President Kufuor, we didn't import. President Akufo-Addo, Mahama, we didn't import any of them. So they are a reflection of the society.
Thank you, Dr. hLOVOR. Nene, take us away.
Well, yes, the campaign process
and the elections,
and the elections, 2008. Well, 2008. Sorry, we look at. I think that the best candidates around that time, I will choose Dr. Papa Kwesi Indum and Dr. Pusakara Foster, because if you look at the message that they carried message of development, of transforming this country. And I remember their interviews and their presidential debates. They knew what they were talking about. As compared to the other candidates, they were just playing to the gallery. And I remember that in those campaigns, and that is where in politics, perceptions, if they are not cured early, they become what the people believe and they become realities. That there was a perception of the arrogance of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to the extent that that became a campaign message. That vote for someone who is humble, don't vote for someone who is an arrogant person. And there was also the perception about the president, then candidate Akufo-Addo, using drugs. I remember where it was reported, those things. Those were the untruths that were told, but they did not seek to deal with them early. And it became a message. And it hurts them. And you know, Dr. hLOVOR is talking about the fact that the Ghanaian is quite conservative. Yes. Even though we are progressive people, when it comes to issues of morality, when it comes to issues of leadership, we expect the best persons to lead us. Whether that is hypocrisy or what, I don't know. But I think we are hypocrites. That amongst us, we are so corrupt, but we don't even want to admit the fact that corruption is with us. So yes, these were the perceptions about the candidates Nana Danko Kufuor. And his own statements also at a point didn't help matters. That yes, if you have never been poor, that is not a campaign message. What you need to tell us is what you are coming to do, and it didn't help him.
Has never worked in public service.
Yeah. and the issue of drugs, that a certain MP,
Amwate.
yes, Eric Amwate, of the ruling party, had been arrested in the US
And jailed.
And he was arrested because of an issue of drugs. So it became a message. Okay, MPP is funded with drug money. And that became a big issue. There was no way the MPP could deal with that particular issue because there was enough evidence, and he had even been jailed in the United States. So that empowered the NDC. That yes, we don't peddle in drugs and some other issues. Then President Kufuor honors himself. Yes, getting to the end of his tenure, he decided to honor himself with the highest honor of the land.
There's something of the order
And
of
the order
Volta.
of the Star of Volta. Why will you do this? But yes,
But
he did.
well.
Yes, he did well. But he should have allowed us to honor him. So he honored himself, and that became a big issue. Why is he honoring himself? And I remember Dr. Tony Edu, one radio show, talking about the fact that President Kufuor had gone for some chains and those things just to ridicule President Kufuor and his achievements. But those are some of the things. And in the elections, towards the first round of elections, the campaign approach of the NDC helped a lot. Dr. hLOVOR started talking about the house-to-house campaign. And one interesting thing was that, consider Ghana in 2008. And then candidate Akufo-Addo decided to be doing Facebook Live town hall meetings. Facebook Live, 2008. How many Ghanaians were serious with Facebook Live? But yes, that was the approach of where town hall meetings, small people, and it will be carried online. Those things, yes, very innovative, but they didn't yield any results. And that was a miscalculation on the part of the campaign team of Akufo-Addo. That when Professor Mills was moving from door to door, knocking and entering compound houses, sitting with them for some few minutes, you go to the taxi rank, and President Mills will be at the taxi rank and talking to them. Can you imagine? Professor Mills comes to you in your taxi at the taxi station. You least expected him, and he's there, and he tells you that, my brother, I need your vote. No matter how you hate the NDC and Professor Mills, it will make an impression on your mind.
I'm sure that was a strategy that in the primaries Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia used.
Sure.
Where he sat behind the phone and virtually calling all the over 200,000, so we told, delegates.
Yes, so they feel a connection. But you are moving town hall meetings, and he was moving he went to Paris, he went to New York, visiting. What? You are not president, and that became a big issue. This man is not yet
on the
president.
presidential jet.
He's not yet president. What is he doing?
Talking
Traveling
to
around. So those were the things that did not work for Nana Akufo-Addo, then candidate Akufo-Addo. But he was prosecuting an elite form of campaign. But that form of campaign didn't sit well with the people of Ghana here, coupled with an ailing economy, the economy that wasn't doing too well. Yet it didn't bother him that much. He decided to do what he was doing. So these are the dynamics that led to the first round. And after the first round, one interesting thing, the MPP had lost majority in parliament.
Yes.
Now the MPP losing majority in parliament, it made it easy for Professor Mills to tell the people of Ghana, now the NDC has majority in parliament. If an MPP person becomes president, how can he work with NDC majority? Give it to me. And that was it. President Kufuor also makes a mistake, reduces fuel prices. And if you remember, around that time, trotro drivers and taxi drivers had been arrested. No, they have been arrested at 37
and taken into the morgue.
Yes, some had been jailed. In fact, they were in prison. Some there was a new road traffic law.
Yeah,
and some had been jailed 3 months and all. And during the second round of elections, President Kufuor decided to release them. Then there was a backlash that, so you could have released them. When we were begging you that they were the breadwinners, until they come home with the trotro, the sales they make, we were unable to eat. You didn't listen to us. Now that you need us to vote for you, you have released them. Thank you for releasing our husbands, but we are showing you the red card. So it is evident that in the elections, Professor Mills won. In fact, even his votes in the Ashanti region went up as compared to the first round. His vote in the Volta region shot up. In almost all the regions, his vote went up. So it became a case that because of the mistakes of Kufuor, getting to the end, it did not help help matters for Kufuor. And another thing, reducing fuel prices. Why will you reduce fuel prices when before elections we were crying that things have become too expensive?
Said no.
You didn't bother.
It's the international prices.
Good. You're talking about the world market price that hadn't gone down, so you cannot reduce yours. So the same situation, yet you could reduce fuel prices because of the second round. And they told him, thank you for reducing fuel prices. It will ease our pain and our pressure. But we'll not vote for you because you have not been truthful with us. And these were the things that worked in favor of Professor Mills. And Professor Mills's demeanor, his composure, his his humility, and the fact that people could see a Christian gentleman in this man. You couldn't tell us that he was an arrogant man. He had been boss IRS. There was nothing against him for corruption and all those things. So Professor Mills was presented as a candidate who was a saint. And as we said earlier, it looks like Ghanaians, we prefer such persons who are saintly. And it worked. That this is a man who, in fact, there is no sin about this man.
There's no visible sin.
Yeah, the MPP tried. They tried to bring the issue of his son.
Yes.
That this is a man you are saying he's a Christian gentleman. He fathered a son out of wedlock. It didn't work. So they should even know when to throw in which political missiles. So these were the things that at the end of the day will work for the NDC to win that particular elections. And that was the election that Ketri from Pong UG, he talks about the third term bag. That we are still trying to find a cure to that third term bag. That no party has been able to break that jinx of not being able to win a third term continuously. And that is what we are still trying to find a solution to it. I don't know if breaking the 8 will help. If really Baumia's candidature will help in breaking the 8 for the MPP, that would be maybe another time we can interrogate these things.
I'm hoping that by the time we get to 2024, it would have been closer to the election. That would have been a very beautiful discussion for us to run.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing. So yes, in sum, these were the things that came together that helped the cause of Professor Mills in winning the presidency. And there was the vice presidential candidate factor. That there was this John Dramani Mahama. John Dramani Mahama came to that ticket a man loved by the people of Ghana. That he was seen as a gentleman, as an example of a gentleman in politics. Because John Dramani Mahama, he spoke well. John Dramani Mahama was a gentleman. He had respect for the opposition, even when, for the ruling government, even when criticizing their policies and all, you could see some gentleness in the criticism.
It was not abusive.
No, not at all. So those are the things that helped him. It helped the cause. And there was, when it came to the vice presidential slot, there was this thing about experience, that this is a man who has risen from assemblyman
all the way to the
through the ranks, MP, deputy minister, and he wants your vote to support someone. He wants to be vice president. As against a Baumia, and no, Ghana never knew him. He just pops up, a gentleman smiling in glasses that vote for, I want to be your vice president. So he came in without any real political history, without any political track record. Even though he was at the Bank of Ghana, when you're a technocrat, we don't know you, we don't see your face.
But they credited him with a redenomination.
Redenomination. We didn't see a face. What we saw was the finance minister then, and J. Kufuor, doing the redenomination. When it comes to redenomination, who do you credit that thing to? J. Kufuor. You never mention the governor. The mess that is going on in Ghana's financial sector now. Do we really talk about the governor of the Bank of Ghana? We talk about the finance minister. We talk about President Nanado failing us. We don't talk about the governor. So Baumia comes in, and we don't know Baumia. Then comes in John Ramani Mahama, a gentleman Ghana loves, a gentleman Ghana knows, a gentleman Ghana feels okay with. So that slot also contribute. Yes, it contributed to the victory of the NDC. Just as in 2016, Baumia would be known to the people of Ghana. He would have gained some political experience, and it had a heavy. He made a heavy contribution to the victory of Nana Addo Akufo-Addo in the 2016 elections. But that was absent in the 2008 elections because he was a novice in party politics at a national level in Ghanaian politics. So these things, I would say, contributed to the victory of the NDC.
I would want you to just talk for about some 2 minutes on the Electoral Commission, their role in this very election, before I get to Dennis.
The Electoral Commission in the
person of Afarijan.
In the 2008 elections, I think that was a moment where if you were Ghanaian and you watch how tense Ghana was and the composure of the chairperson of the commission and the way the commission conducted itself, you could see that the commission had matured. Where IPAC was involved, where the strong room, they allowed political parties. Yes, because he wanted real transparency. To the extent that what was happening in the strong room
was being live to everybody.
Yes. So you see, a chairperson of a commission who he didn't show interest in any of the candidates winning. He had no interest. All he wanted was Ghana to be safe and sound. And I think he credited himself very well as the chairperson of the EC. That still we still talk about Afarijan. Why aren't we talking about the others as much as we talk about Afarijan? Because the founding, what he has been able to do with the EC, he built an image for the EC, a global image for the Electoral Commission of Ghana.
A respected brand.
Exactly. And would that have been the legacy he had left us? I wish that all leaders will leave legacies that 20 years down the line, those who will begin
98.3 FM.
I think people come to such offices and all they seek is to build wealth for themselves.
Thank you, Dr. AMANOR LARTEY. Dr. Aloja, I'll be coming to you before we wrap up on the Electoral Commission. Dennis.
Yes.
Your take on the election proper.
Yes. I think if you have to look at the statistics, where in the first round NDC had 47.76%, MPP 49.32%, of which per our constitution and then the SIA that governs the election clearly indicates that you must get 50 plus 1 vote. So ideally none of these candidates had that kind of percentage. But the question here is that how come one who was 49.32% be overtaken by one who is having 47 point something percent, which you can see at least 2% kind of margin. First of all, you could see the emergence of floating voters in that era and swing region. If you are to take the 10 regions, you see from the analysis that out of the 10 regions, 4 regions were swing. They were not deeply for MPP, neither for NDC. Now, if you can do the analysis proper, then we have to take, let's say, Greater Accra, for instance, which, based on its cosmopolitan nature, the demography, you see that they saw with their naked eye that kind of opulence, kind of gesture from then ruling party.
So the MPP lost in Greater Accra?
Yeah, and that is the place that you see the elite there, the business class and the other people working there. So when you begin to, they can read into your actions and inactions so far as politics is concerned. So when you go to the grassroots and you want to just, excuse my language, fool those people because they don't have access to some of these political happenings, you get them, but not in Greater Accra. What about Central Region? Based on their demography, you see elite are there. So you could see that these people, it takes one with good policies to convince them. But the point is that if you were to look at the statistics proper, you understand that even though President Mills was coming from that region, that really added some vote to him. But then that was not, they were not too, let's say, ethnocentered or tribal-centered. That
so the difference was not so huge.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that really played out in the 2008 election. Quite apart from that, you have to look at the personality factor, of which my lecturers have spoken extensively on it. But then you could see from the, prior to the main election, general election, Nanado had a picture or a poster where he had his hand hanged on the cheek. And people were reading meanings into it that the man is thinking about revenge. And I was younger then. People were saying that, look at the facial expression of the man on the poster. The man is not coming for the good of Ghana. He's coming to just revenge on other things. And that also played out into some of us young guys, our ears, that if the man is coming to just revenge and not having the state at heart, then why should we vote for people like that? You could also see elements of sympathy votes helping President Mills then.
Why sympathy votes?
Sympathy vote has been part of our election because President Mills was the one who, contested J. Kufuor in 2000 election.
And lost.
Yeah, and lost. 2004 he came, lost.
He lost again.
2008 he came. So Ghanaians were with the view that the man has been around.
Consistent.
So let's try him. And that one has also gone against us to some extent based on what we are seeing currently with our politics, so far as sympathy vote. For now, I don't believe that Ghanaians, discerning electorates, will be fooled by these kind of, empathy and that kind of things. That this person has been around for a longer period of time, so we are not going to try and test kind of thing again. So these are some of the things that really worked out. But then another thing that also added up to the loss of MPP was, to me, I saw it from this angle that most of the people who worked under Kufuor administration, and they were pro-Kufuor and Alan, thought that they would not have this kind of share within Nana Addo's administration. And so therefore,
they pull back.
They were not actively involved in the election. And some were also preparing their political retirement package. Because if that is the case, I came with Kufuor. Kufuor is exiting from the scene. This man, I'm not coming from his camp. Then I have to prepare my exit. How is the person going on that political retirement? He must amass this kind of wealth. And this perception also sang well in our ears, and it also went against MPP at then. But finally, you could see a clash of the exuberant MPP young guys coming to take over from the elderly people. And the elderly people were also trying to say that we are also around. So it was a mixed bag, kind of
a generational struggle.
Yeah, and at a point, some were reluctant to fully participate, and leading to even the runoff election that of which a day or 2 days before the actual election, some of the MPP guys who were expected to be at Tin constituency didn't go. NDC went there and did the magic, and Tin became the determinant of who becomes the president of Ghana. So this is my bite on the election.
Well, thank you so much for making the point clearly to us. Dr. Hloji, let me get to you, and then I'm sure Anna will come and do the 2 minutes summary, and then we will wrap up. Dr. Hloji.
Is it
hLOVOR?
hLOVOR. Oh.
It's okay. I think that this is the election where, at Kennedy's book,
chasing the elephant to the bush. Was written after the election.
After the election, you see. And I think that one of the key things about this election was how the internal acrimony, particularly that characterized the presidential primaries was handled. I think that leadership at that time, they didn't take it seriously. They presumed that
all is well.
All is well, and then they proceeded that they are all campaigning on the same. But people have their own ambitions. So if I contest with you and I think that okay, you are going to be president, if you become president, that means that I have to wait for 8 years to have a chance. So it's actually undermined the kind of campaign the NPP did at the time. How they handled those who lost out was not there. On the EC, indeed, that the EC was one of the positives. It was one of the positives that we can record from that election, particularly in terms of the electoral commissioner being quite
the chairman
of the electoral commission.
I guess people who don't know the name, Kwadwo Afarijan.
Afarijan appears so calm in even the heat of somebody who have just lost school and then say, but he was just calm.
We were told that he was watching cartoons.
Yeah, he was very calm about it. But that's the kind of personality that you need for this kind of job, because when tempest run, then you need somebody who is so calm, who is not intimidated by the occasion, and of course you must know where he's coming. He's coming from. From 1992, when the thing was not even quite clear if it's an election or an endorsement, to 1994 improvement, 1996 improvement, 2004
and 2008.
And one thing about Afarijan is that in every election,
yes,
both the incumbent and the opposition were accused him of bias.
Yes.
Both. So any election with Afarijan at the center of it, you always have the incumbent and the opposition accusing him of bias.
And I'm sure that was why he neutralized with the IPAC.
Yes, of course. So you see that it was a very transparent process. He tried as much as possible to ensure that at least there's public confidence in the system. There is that trust in the system, trying to have the political parties be clear about where the results are going. So when it was clear to him that Tin will have the decider, I think what happened was that the MPP itself, they thought that, well,
it was a done deal.
It was a done deal. So, and of course, the various attempts to stop him from declaring, and as usual, I said, okay, well, my job is to declare the result. Your job is to go and challenge it in court.
So go to
so go to Tin. If Tin is not okay, you go to court. So I think that 2008 was the year that our electoral commission actually came through, in the sense that in the heat of that movement, in the heat where the parties are all pointing out, because it was only the NDC that was accusing the EC of bias. The MPP was also not very,
ruling government itself
was not also comfortable with some parts of the election. But that election also, of course, while we say that the EC did well, voter registration prior to the election was not well handled. Indeed, it resulted in bloated registered in some, particularly in Ashanti and in Volta. And if you want to know how our political parties end up do more practices. Normally in their strongholds that they have the chance to win. So you have extremely very high turnout. Some of the, I think 3 of the constituencies in Ashanti, and
they get to North and whatnot.
Basically, when those 3 constituencies came from Ashanti and the gap was very close. That is where the whole tension started from, because initially it was like, oh, the NDC was cruising to victory. Then three results from Ashanti came and everything was neutralized. Then the NDC guys became agitated. Then there was Satu South, who reported, and it was like, I think the turnout in those areas were almost around 90%. And if you take into account people who have died, people who might have traveled, and where Ketu South is located, I think the border was closed, but to record that was questionable. And then the 90% from these constituencies in Ashanti.
But it has come from the police station.
Yes. Of course, but we all know that in this country.
Well, I don't know.
Yes, of course. If you have done some research in politics, you will know that in this country, some of the
FM
voter turnout in some of our strongholds. What has come to actually reduce some of these uncertainties is the biometric registration. And as we proceed with the Ghana card agenda, as I said, that the Ghana card should not be seen as a one-off project. It should be, it's a generational project, so that you get to a point where every child born in Ghana has a Ghana card. We will have it to take time, maybe 10 years for everybody to have the card. But as we proceed gradually integrating everything onto the card, then it gets to a point where people will not wake up from their grave to come and vote.
For sure.
Windy Bay 98.3
well,
FM.
It looks like the time is chasing us, and I'm going to be chased out of this place. So 1 minute for wrap up on how it went. 1 minute each, and then Anama will take us away.
So
Nene.
Yes, election 2008, it taught the MPP that arrogance and complacency never wins elections, and I hope that that lesson they will have it at the back of their minds going into 2024.
I also think that 2008 election has revisited MPP and will revisit them in this coming 2024 election. So they need to learn from what happened in 2008 and then see how
But are you a prophet?
Oh, but
I don't know you to be a prophet, but now you're prophesying.
But what happened in 2008 is exactly, they were in power, and currently they are also in power. So if they don't have anything to learn at all from, they should just reflect and check how they handled their own issue there. And then this should also be very strategic, that what worked for them in 2008, if they are able to work it out this time, they can also get the power from.
Are you looking for a consultancy contract?
With my lectures, I will do it.
Dr. hLOVOR, sorry.
Well, as I said, you see, elections are also things that have their own undercurrent. Every election is unique. 2008 was unique. This 2024 will also be unique, but then you can learn from the past to predict the future. I would say that based on 2008, the MPP have to do a lot of in-house work. The tax of winning the election is not yet on the street. It's with the party. The NDC, if you follow the history, follow the tradition, they seems to be the favorite. But being a favorite in an election
doesn't mean that you are winning the election.
So I would say that 2024 is an interesting election. We'll look at it.
2024 is an interesting election. Anamwa, take us away.
I say, I've been for sorry. My what is so done? Dr. hLOVOR. Now, yes, no chimney. Amanyafa. Wo omanimahan. Why in a day? Say, wapede. Watch one who fee on your blue man. And now which him did the way I may sup. On quitting the one that's Wakashima bottom the way ye, wed ye. Now won't you must show ye, or say a baby man can has it. Amanyafo, what by Amayema, and now what by Bema, wɔde pɛ wɔn ho brededede kyɛn dɛ nkyɛ wɔde bɔ som ɔyɛ ɔmanfo no ɔsɛ amanyɛ sɛm de nkyɛ wɔde som ɔsɛ ndɛ sisiara ɔnam amanyɛfo wɔn suban ti da sisiara skuulfo a wɔkyɛ wɔn adi ma obiara yɛn dɛ owie skuul ɔsɛ mɛka yɛ amanyɛ sɛm ɔnam dɛ hɔ no wɔhu dɛ obotum na wɔanya no ho yie anaa wɔanya no ho ntam na ɔno no so ɔyɛ dza ɔmu na ɔkyerɛm dɛ afi biara ɔnam dɛ amanyɛfo sɛ wɔrekɔto aba a ɔman ne sika odidi dwuma na ɔkɔ soro ne nti ebuhu na ɛho yi wɔn ho tam wɔsesa sika no bi guguma na wɔde bi ahyɛhyɛ kotokum na adze ɔbɛyɛ ne ho anyɛ sika tam na ma ɔde so ayɛ ndorin dɛ MPP ɔdo bɔ ho bɔden wɔyɛ da wɔyɛ bi kan wɔ afi 2024 ɔnam dɛ wɔ dwuma yɛ na ɔsa afi 2024 de ɔyɛ afi a yɛ nyinaa yɛbɔbɔ kyienwa yɛdze ahwɛ ne yie ɔyɛ de obiara na so de echi dɛ ɔrehwɛ ma obesi 2024 na NDC so wɔ adwuma kakra wɔyɛ ɔda ho de sɛ ehwɛ sɛsi amendema kɔ yi a NDC wɔdem na sɛ wɔdem so a na wɔ adwuma wɔyɛ edze ka ho na Dr. AMANOR LARTEY eduru no do no kyerem de sɛ hwɛ afi 2008 a na Dr. Opako Esindum nye Dr. Abu Sakara Foster dem nkrofo ebien na wɔwɔ ngyinado papaapa nsɛm a wɔde kɔto aban na ɔtɔ asom kyɛn ho a wɔkɔpere abato ne nyinaa nanso ɔmanfo wanto a ma ɔsɛ hwɛ 2008 a na Ghana fu pinara wɔn yi hyɛ gyange na nado ho wɔkyem de Ghana fu kyem de ɔno ɔyɛ obi na ndrubon ɔde no ho damara so na ɔyɛ obi a ahantan wɔnyen tɛdɛ ɔde yɛ no ho papaapa nti na Ghana fu so de msubenye bin wɔmpɛ ɔkyem de dem ɔmanpɛ kufo
sɛ wanka dɛ ɔde adrubon
nkɔfo adwen de nkɔfo adwen bi de perception de odi ndrubon hugwa nti na wɔmpɛ na asam dama so no wɔwɔ simupo bi de ɔyɛ obi a ɔyɛ hantan nti na wɔmpɛ na asam wɔkyem de dam afi 2008 ni mo mampan ku for bɔkɔ afi 2007 na rekɔ na wɔkyekye nkɔfo bi na wɔwɔ abanim wɔ amanade de wɔdzi ndura afi ɔmane mu ndrubon afi ɔmane mu akɔ amanade nti na magana fo wɔn hyɛ dara ngye wɔn ho dama so mampan ku for na so ma no ho abawdobɔ ɔno so mama Ghana fu pinara wodi no ho yaw ɔyɛ mfumdu pi fomungo na nabo yɛ din wɔkada ɔnto do wanto do so akato no bo akɔto aban ɔto do damara so na ahenkafo binom wɔkyɛ de 37 bia wɔgyina nkoyin kanda wɔgyina wɔkyekye wɔn wɔde bi mu kɔ jail na ade ni na so mama Ghana fu wodi ya amade minti wanto aban amfa ma ɔyɛ MPP na ɔno so nyina mama NDC wɔnya ɔyɛ anantu bi gyina do ma wɔ so tum ka wɔn nsɛm damara so na John Dramani Mahama na oyo bi a we di assemblyman da we di MP da nti na Ghana fo won anyi no ho wo hu do oyo bi a no ho nanyi da fom oyo bi a owo ahobrade na dam no so na Ghana fo wo hwehwe de minti brara obade obotai Professor John Evans Atamis Nature Ghana fo gitum na woto aba edeman onam John Mahama na ahobrase na kwanya ofodo a ototo ne ndema nti na Dr. Latem wɔkyɛm dɛ Ghana fo wɔyɛ binum a 2024 wɔmpɛ ahantan na ami na mɔwɔdo mi nyimyɛ na ade ɔse ɔno ɔyɛ da wɔn hwehwɛ kora na dɛm suban ɔyɛ da otumetro de sinyi ɔkyɛn bibi mohu dɛ sɛ wɔdɛm suban a edikogu a wɔntɔ Ghana fo ichi na Dennis bem na ɔkyɛm dɛ na nanado Ghana fu binum hyɛ dara hon enyinje no ho wɔkyɛm dɛ sɛ wɔhwɛ na unhu dɛ ɔwadze papa biara edimomani into 2018 na onyada wɔpɛ dɛ wɔto aba ediman na Professor Mills de na wagina apribi 2004 onyoma pankufo fenfen yanti Ghana fu yɛ dɛ yɛntɔma na ne yɛmfa nhwade ɔno so ka ho na Professor Mills odi nkuyin wɔ afi 2008 na ɔkyerem dɛ ɔmampankufo na abrodo nso na prowenyi katahye nti ɔmanfo na wodi ya ɔno so ka ho no mama mampankufo na aban ɔyɛ MPP amanye ku wofi aban ɔyɛ 2008 ɔse na mebun so binum so pi wɔpere dɛ wɔbaba abanim na mpanyinfo so an wɔso wɔ mampankufo na aban mu so wɔso wɔpere dɛ sɛ mampankufo yi hɔ a wɔbaba hyem nti dam nkɔ eku abien na obiara repere ɔyɛ ɔmanpanyin de bio wɔ afi 2018 ni nyara ka ho na anko yi ama MPP ɔnam de na wɔprinti wɔpre wobedi tumin na wɔpre wokotokum nti na wɔnanyi hyɛ dara yi ho de wɔmpre tumin na wokotokum na no hia wɔ papa na so de sɛ ehwe 2008 a aye suande kesnara da MPP na NDC sumar ka chawen de want to wonder me one fine pro 2024
yo Jana Moya da sebebre
asiden ho
our listeners, we're so grateful that you shared the time with us. I'm sure we've learned something from history and let that be our guide. My name is Colin Salko on behalf of the production crew made up of Francis Tausbole, Osman Mumunim, Bismarck Ampon, Bright Fuga, and all the other team members. We say thank you for being part of the show. God willing, next week we are back for another session. It's been Hot Sport.